So if everyone's agreed and understands we're recording this, welcome to the Public Schools of Brookline Special Education Standard Operational Procedural Manual, SPED-PAC's reading. This is a manual that was just recently revised and used in training this year, and the intent is for it to be available as a reference to the staff and also to parents in the community, and it comes out of the Office of Student Services. There's no doubt that any manual might have errors, typos, outdated information, and the like, because that's to be expected. And that's definitely not illegal, it's not necessarily nefarious, and it's not a big issue if corrections or updates are made. It's very important, though, that a procedures manual be as clear and accurate as possible. Because when reading it to find out the procedure you're supposed to follow, one should not have to say, I think this means, or what, I'm trying to understand. Clarity in a procedure manual is of the utmost importance. It's not what is meant that counts, it's what is written. So just looking at one slide of background, historical timeline, on the 8th day, the good Lord said, we have an IDEA, and these are just some of the special ed directors that I remember from my days. And the point being, Granville had a manual, and that his procedures and his procedural manual went to Kathy Kilcona, and went to Candace McCann, to Denise Roxland, to Kirsten Vilboni, well, I'm not sure she ever wrote it, to Karen, and to, oops, yeah, I know, that was inappropriate. And finally to Sam, and I'm sure there were several directors in the middle there that I have mentally blocked out. The point being that a standard operating procedure manual is handed from person to person in an administrative job. New person looks it over, sees the current implementation, and typically as part of their first few months, they fix, modify, add, edit the procedures as they see fit, adding their style, fixing old laws, changing it. And that's what an administrator does. So parts of any manual will contain original text and design and have the fingerprints, so to speak, of all the previous people who have ever touched it. But after just a couple of months, the manual has a new owner. Somebody takes responsibility for it, and it becomes the new standard. This is the manual we're looking at. I have a copy here. There's a couple of printed copies. Sam Zimmerman has released it, sent it to a parent. We can put it on the website. Okay, you can see it. It's a big PDF, but a lot of people have it as a printout. The introduction of the manual, very classic, and it talks about following the policies and procedures within the law. All good, appropriate. What I want to talk about in this presentation is just a couple of the topics that are in there. Okay? This is not a comprehensive discussion of all the items in the manual that I have concern of, and I have concern about multiple items. We're going to talk a little bit the makeup of the IEP team, what effective progress is, placement, discipline, and quote-unquote other. This talk is not the parents' rights talk, although in a way it's more important. That's coming up later. And throughout the talk, when you see yellow highlighter, that's stuff that I've used to highlight something that I'm going to be talking about. I don't expect you to be reading the slides. Some of them are dense. That's not the point. But bold, italics, and underlines are in the original. And the presentation is basically, I'm going to show you the law, and I'm going to show you the manual. Okay? This is a concept we have to keep in mind throughout the presentation and every day until your child is either 18 or 22. This is out of Massachusetts Department of Ed, but it's all over the place. It's in the IDEA. The IEP is written to fit the student. You're in an IEP team meeting. You're talking about goals and visions and services. You are talking about what that student needs to get FAPE, to get an appropriate education. The IEP defines FAPE, period. And it has no connection with a particular placement. It's not written for a particular school or district. So during an IEP development, okay, you can't hear somebody saying, we don't offer that here. An IEP is not written with a concept of where it's going to happen, including if you're sitting in Pierce School there, in an IEP meeting, when discussing the IEP, it has nothing to do with Brookline. And by the way, I see some people are taking notes. I'm sort of kind of reading off my script because I can go crazy. This will be available. So you'll have the slides available and what I'm saying, just to let you know. Not that I could get emotional and start screaming or anything. Oops, we don't want to do that yet. Where are we? I lost my script. Okay, so in the IEP meeting, somebody cannot say, oh, I need to check with the administrator. No. We are a team deciding what the student needs. And as the IEP process guide, which is on our website, it is the Bible of IEPs and it's readable. You will understand it fully. You need it. Okay? IEP under no circumstances should be written to fit a placement. Teams must remember this critical fact when moving through the process. Okay? Once you have a completed IEP, goals, services, etc., then the team immediately says, okay, where can that happen? And that's a concept in federal law. It comes out of both the IDEA, it comes out of, well, the OCR, Office of Civil Rights, it comes out of the Massachusetts Guide. They cannot say, oh, we don't offer that here. All right, this is out of, this is out of the IDEA also. Now don't read the whole thing, doesn't matter. This is the required team. The definition of the team in the IDEA, Massachusetts in their regulations say, oh, we do what IDEA says. Cool. Notice that there are 17 members. Okay? You don't need to have them all. And sometimes one person can fit 2 roles. That's all fine. Okay? So what I do want you to notice is that the representative of the local agency, that's in the middle, number 4, okay, is typically your ETF, your team leader. If there's an administrator, they may cover that role, okay? The job description of the ETF is what's in the middle there, the indented part. Don't be reading it. I'm moving on, and you'll see it again in a second. Okay? So, in our manual, let's start talking about the manual that we're talking about. Brookline has a definition of the required team membership. They took this definition, which is exactly what you would expect, except the words that I show here blacked out are missing from the manual. Okay? They don't have black bars in the manual. I'm just showing what came out. So this is the definition in the IDEA. Okay? But instead of, in the middle there, instead of saying the job responsibilities of the ETF, they're just 3, just an ellipse there in red, and says educational team facilitator. So for whatever reason, okay, we took a definition from the IDA, put it in the manual, took out the job description of the ETF. The manual is for ETFs, for their reference, and for parents. So the question is, what did they take out? Or no, I take that back. What is missing? This is out of the IDEA. That is what is missing in the red square. That the ETF is qualified, has to be qualified, to provide a supervised provision of specially designed instruction. Knowledgeable about gen ed, knowledgeable about the availability of resources in the district. I'm translating the jargon. And more importantly, also not in the manual. from Massachusetts law, the ETF, the leader of your team, has the authority to commit resources. Okay? That means there is never, ever, during an IEP team meeting, a need to check with the administration. I need to look into that. The law is the ETF can commit district resources, period. So for instance, if the team decides that the student is going to need transportation to and from school, or the student's going to need transportation to an after-school activity in order to get FAPE, they are, by law, need to get transportation to the football game or whatever. Right? The ETF in the meeting at that time has the authority to say, yes, doesn't have to call Mary or transportation people. Okay? And that's Lanisha is the new transportation person. So, what did I write? So the ETF can do everything, can allocate the resources, commit the resources. That is so vital to the job description that when the state comes in every 6 years and tears apart the district or special ed, and it's a good thing, it's called a CPR, and I think it's called a CPR because that's what most district directors need afterwards. When the state comes in to do the coordinated program review, this is right out of their checklist. Okay? And not only that, every year the district sends to the state, here is a list of our people who have the authority to commit resources of the district. Yeah, I'm sort of beating a dead horse here. That is a vital component of your IEP team meeting, because the IEP team is the only group of people that make all the decisions on what is appropriate as an education for this child. There should be no influences outside of that room, outside of that team. And so this information you need to have, the ETFs need to have, which I assume they do, I don't know, okay?
And
so
you are a member of the IEP team.
You are one of the most important. Well, look what it says, out of the coordinate, this is out of the state, who's number one? Okay. If the ETF is there and there's also a special ed director there in the meeting, that special ed director might be the one with the authority to commit resources, but somebody has to be there. Typically, it's the ETF. And I wasn't sure, I wanted to make sure, is this true in other places, whatever. So I randomly picked another school district in another state. And I looked at New York City for whatever reason, and big, bold, right on top, you know, the three, they don't talk about the allocating of resources. For us, it's a state thing, but they actually end up having 9 bullets after that about the job description of what we call an ETF, how they make the team work as a team, etc. Okay? We'll see a little later on why that's so vital. The control of what's going on, of the services your child gets, of what the goals are, of how much time, what any of the resources they need is decided by the people at that table and no one else. And that's missing from the manual. That's my point, it's missing. Is that wrong, illegal, a problem? It's not illegal. They just took out the middle of the definition. Parent participation is a different topic. And this we had big discussions last November with the district. The meeting notice you get. Hey, there's a meeting notice. It's simple. It's federal law. It's right here. This is out of the IDA. The meeting notice clearly states who will be in attendance. And there are advisories on this, actually. The district must tell the family who they're bringing to the meeting. Okay? We've had a lot of discussions about this. So when you get a meeting notice, you'll look at it, it says when, where, and who. There was just a problem in Lincoln this week. If there are any Lincoln parents here, the Lincoln ETF send out a notice to all the parents saying, I have IEP meetings Monday and Wednesday, 7:30 to 9:30, or whatever it said, blocks of time. Second year in a row, I objected. That's illegal. It has to be made at a mutually agreeable time. They can't do that. So the district this time, they didn't do it last year, showed it to the state like 3 days ago, and my assumption is they said, Craig is complaining about this, and the state said, yeah, you can't do that, and a new letter went out yesterday, okay? The time and place has to be mutually agreeable. But this is all really the law says, the federal law, it's simple, right? Purpose, time, location, and who will be in attendance. Brookline's manual goes into a little bit more depth. Okay, we're going to look at this next slides. I'm going to break it down. So they start with any person who is invited to the team meeting by Brookline must be included on the invitation. And you know what? 100% right. Perfect. Yes. End of story. Let's go to the next topic. No. This is true if a district administrator's participation is required as a contributing member of the IEP team. Their name must be on the meeting notification. Well, okay, that's added, and the emphasis, the yellow is mine, the underline, the bold, right out of our manual. And it's correct, contributing members must be on the list. But according to the IDA federal law, all members must be on the list. So that's moot. Okay? Non-contributing members, whatever that means, because contributing member does not have a definition in special ed law. Everybody who the district allows in that room from their side has to be on the list. It's easy. This came up in this district last year because you walk into a meeting and there's a surprise administrator there, or two or three, or people that you don't even know. That's illegal. Can't be done. Okay? So this added sentence, is it, well, it's misleading at best. And why it's in there. And then additionally, according to the Brookline manual, members may include other individuals at the request of a team member. Huh? So then your ETF can just invite anybody, make a request and bring them along? No, that's a problem, okay? And looking at that closer, if the other individuals are listed on the meeting notice, and federal law, if the other individuals have knowledge or special expertise regarding the child, including related services personnel as appropriate. Related services, nursing, transportation. So yeah, the nurse can come if she's on the invite list, okay? The bus driver can come if he or she is on the invite list. I guess I made the nurse female and the bus driver either one. My apologies. So the law is very simple, and we have these jumping through hoops confusion as to who can come. And that's extremely important because we learned, for whoever was listening, that the team makes all the decisions. The team has the power to do everything for that child. You are a vital member of that team. It has to be defined. We have to know who's going to be there. Now, don't misunderstand this. If somebody comes to you that morning and says, I'm not on the invitation list, I'm the new guidance counselor, I'd like to sit in, or I have some information, you can say yes. They have to be invited. You have to know in advance. You can make those kinds of decisions on the spot, but you don't walk in and get surprised. as happens extremely often in a district I know. I'm trying to behave.
Like parents can invite anybody they want.
The parent, well, hold on.
Oh,
Hey,
I
hey,
didn't-
hey,
okay,
sir.
Sorry.
Hey, shh. My God.
Sorry.
As to the makeup of the team again, talking about this specific fact, what came out in November, the reasoning after about 3 weeks of arguing with the district, I was told, well, we have to be able to evaluate the ETFs, and that has to be a surprise, so an administrator might be there to evaluate the ETF, job evaluation. I have a newsletter that goes out to special ed professionals, and I know a lot of people in the field. And I sent out 20 questionnaires, simple one question questionnaire, so I guess it's not a questionnaire. I sent out 20 of the same question across 13 districts, Eastern Mass mainly. And I said, how do you evaluate your ETF? It's a good point. Okay? Not one surprises with a surprise evaluator at the meeting. One or two of them just don't evaluate them on the spot. There were a couple that said we talk to the parent in the morning, we ask if it's okay, they say no, we leave. So there was always an awareness of the parent and an okay. One or two of them use, as the evaluator just for that meeting, also use somebody not in the chain of command. Okay? So if they want to evaluate your ETF, you don't want their SPED director sitting there, because that's the whole chain, and that just brings in the administration. Maybe you get a principal from another school to do it. Okay, there are ways to do it. The U.S. Department of Education, the Office of Special Ed Programs, OSEP, issued guidance because a lawyer wrote them a question about this very topic. And guidance letters, you see on the very bottom, OSEP letter to Andel 216. Guidance letters really drive a lot of special ed. And the guidance was about who can bring who and this exact law. And what they said was exactly what I've been telling you. The district must inform the parent in advance. But the parent can bring anybody they want. You can now, there is the restriction that who you bring needs to also have that special clause, knowledge or special expertise regarding the child. That's rather broad, okay? But you don't have to announce in advance. You don't have to ask permission. You can absolutely walk in with a lawyer. Never telling the district, you can show up to your IEP meeting with a lawyer. And under federal law, the district can very easily say, whoa, can we reschedule so we can have our lawyer here? And you can say, no. And the meeting must continue with the lawyer. It could also be a grandmother, a neighbor, an advocate, such as myself, okay? Now, it does say, and I fully agree, this is missing from the procedural manual, totally. So this whole statement, this whole concept, this whole thought, and it happens in districts all over the place where an advocate shows up or a lawyer shows up. And I've asked many district questions, what do you do? I have a quiz out there. It's one of the questions. It's a fun quiz. It's one of the questions. What do you do? Do you cancel the meeting? Do you get your attorney on speakerphone? Most ETFs don't know what to do. They panic and cancel the meeting, or they do something inappropriate. I do agree with what it said at the end of this letter, saying showing up with a lawyer sort of starts a little intimidation factor. It's not good practice. It's totally legal. And that should be noted in the procedural manual for the procedures of an IEP meeting. It's not. These are some of the things I object to in the manual that everyone here should know. These are things, I don't know who knows them. This one's in some ways minor, in some ways really major. And again, it's picky. Don't worry, we're getting into some stuff that'll blow your mind in a minute. We all know of the concept of effective progress, right? Does your child need special ed? First question, do they have a disability? Yes, they have a disability. Are they not making effective progress because of the disability? I've been in this district and others where it is said, getting all Bs, just pass the MCAS, making effective progress. End of story. In the middle of multiple bullets that are in the manual, page 33, that are in the law and in the IEP process guide, has a student in the middle, lower middle, made growth according to chronological age, development expectations, and the individual educational potential of the child. Okay? That is vital. Okay?
This is Brookline's definition, though. There's not a law that defines.
Brookline took this definition out of from the Commonwealth. No, this is a good definition. This is solid. That's in the middle of it. There's other things they say about effective progress, but one of the points that I'm stressing that is in the manual, okay? And I'll explain it just a teeny bit more.
Because I wonder if the team members even know those phrases.
Well,
Make a
I'm just pointing out things that are and are not in the manual. And if we look, okay, this is federal law, IDEA, and this is something also very key, and I highlighted this. This is federal law. Specifically prohibits the team from finding a student ineligible because the student is advancing from grade to grade. Okay? Student is getting good enough grades to keep progress, graduated second grade, graduated third grade. That is not a reason to say, oh, no special ed. It's not a reason to say they need it, of course. Okay? Oops. I thought I had another slide in here, and oh, here it is. The IDEA specifically prohibits the team from making an ineligibility decision because of making grade to grade. Having a team member or a non-team administrator or a teacher say, students passing all the classes, hence making effective progress. Not necessarily true. Very simplistic example, a student has a neuropsych, has 140 IQ, obvious capabilities, getting C's and D's. Okay, very simplistic thing, okay? Qualifies because of an attention disorder or whatever. That's probably not effective progress. It's obvious, 140 IQ, okay? And obvious other capabilities and getting C's and D's, that shows that even C's and D's, not effective progress. Now, there are some students, like me, who got C's and D's, and it was purely because I wasn't that smart, okay? And that's, you know, sometimes you have to understand that, I'm sorry, your child's just not that smart. And that doesn't mean special ed either. So there's a lot in there. But that's something we don't really look at in my experience, and it's just buried somewhere. And how well known it is, how well it's taught in training, how much people know, I don't know. It's a fight I've had here in eligibility meetings. Okay, now we're getting into really, really important stuff. Okay. IDEA, federal law.
Craig, how long has that been the law?
Always, since I was born. That's a long time. As far as I know, that comes out of child find. Okay, child find is one of the basic tenets. So I would bet that's in there from some of the original documents in the 90s and even maybe the stuff before then, but always in the IDA. Okay, under child find, which is looking for general ed kids who need special ed, that's where that comes from. It's a little hard to find. We talk about placement. For you, anyone in this room who's not a special ed geek, placement, a little tricky concept, okay? Placement is not necessarily physical place of being. General ed kids, the principal can take them out of room 102 classroom and put them in classroom room 104 if it's the same kind of gen ed. That's not a change of placement, that's just changing classrooms. If, and I'm making this up, if we had a RISE program at Lincoln, let's say also, making that up, I think. Special ed team deciding that your child who's in RISE Runkle should go to RISE Lincoln. That is not a change in placement, it's a change in just physical place. So there's a difference. Going from the TLC to RISE, change in placement. Okay? So placement's sort of a funky word. Okay. Each district has to ensure that the parent of a child with a disability is a member of any group that makes decisions on the placement of the child. Okay? The parent, 100% involved in every discussion. A placement discussion may be made without the involvement of a parent, but there better be a real solid record of attempting to ensure the parent's involvement. Okay? You are the solid part of the group that decides placement, always, period. State law, and I just want you to look at the highlighted things. In determining a placement at the team meeting, the team shall consider, the team shall consider, the team shall determine the appropriate placement, the team, okay, shall determine specific placement. Yeah, I know, I'm being a little bit redundant, but so is the law. Okay? The team meeting, after the IEP has been developed, you're sitting in your IEP team meeting, you did the visions, you did the goals, you did the services, you did the bullying, you did the transportation, you did the ESY. You don't leave your seat because you now are immediately saying, okay, where? Now you have done that at all your meetings and you may not even know it because sometimes I say, oh, and it'll be in the same class next year. Checkbox, you're done. But if you remember, you give 2 signatures when you finally get the packet 6 months later, okay? 1 signature is the IEP, 1 signature is placement. Okay? I'm really stressing this for a reason, okay? You are involved. Placement happens immediately after. The IEP has no idea where it's going to happen. Then the team says, where are we going to do this? So if during the IEP, it's determined by the team that the child needs swimming 3 times a week for PT, which is, there are issues around that, okay? You can't say the district doesn't have a pool. We're not talking about the district, we're talking about FAPE. And then you get to the placement team part, and you say, they need a pool 3 times a day. And you figure it out, okay? That's the law right in front of you, okay? The only exception in the law, only exception, if the child is going to be going, if right away in the beginning of the placement part of the meeting, and in Massachusetts the placement team is the same makeup as the IEP team. It's not true all over the place. If right away you all look at each other and say, this child needs an out of district, and everyone shakes their head yes. And if it's a complex case, the law, Massachusetts law, then gives you, okay, you got 10 days to have the placement team meeting. okay? You got a lot to learn at that time. Only if it's the first time out of district and if it's complex. There's the law, Massachusetts law. Our manual in the section on in-district settings, meaning RISE, TLC, any of our programs inside a Brookline public school. Teams should always consider in-district settings as they relate to this child's needs. You should contact your special ed director for support if you're considering a setting that's more restrictive. If you're considering putting the child in a TLC or into RISE, okay? So this is Brookline's procedure. The manual is written for ETFs, so the U is to the ETF. The ETF should contact the SPED director. I have questions about this, okay? It's a team-only decision. There is no special director on the team. A team decision. Remember that. This meeting is the last 5 minutes of your IEP meeting. Could be the last 6 hours. So you all sit there and you find the special ed director to get involved in something that the law appears to say they have no involvement in? I don't get it. That's our manual, page 58. Very specifically, again, state law, in-district placement. Okay? Going to partial inclusion, going to full inclusion, going even from RISE back to a TLC. The placement decision made by the team, she'll talk about specific services provided. So everything, again, is decided by the team. Team shall identify such placement and include such determination on the proposed IEP. You walk out of that meeting with a proposed IEP. This is done during the meeting because many times you walk out with the proposed IEP, right? Makes sense. The team is there. No group discussions without the parent. The parent's there. State law, very clear. Okay? One paragraph. Brookline's manual, on the other hand, okay, for the same situation, before someone, prior to recommending, I don't know who's recommending it, prior to recommending a student to an in-district program, to a TLC in the school, to RISE, the ETF and the principal get involved. Then the ETF directs the PSS. Anyone here know what a PSS is? I was hoping you would. I can't find a definition anywhere. But the ETF directs the PSS and other relevant staff to review the IEP, followed by a list of 7 considerations. Okay? Now, all of this you're looking at by law has to happen in the 3 minutes, I guess. I mean, and it's bringing in all these outside people. It's bringing outside consultants, in-district specialists. Okay? I don't get it. Placement team happens with the IEP meeting in an hour or 2. Everything is a team decision. Here it talks about consideration for these 7 items. The only consideration that must be given is to the proposed IEP as it's written. You just wrote the IEP. You decide where placement is, in-district placement. No, you don't do this. You do this. Now, I might be missing something. I might be completely wrong. I'm not. But if I am, I really want to be told. They are both how in-district happens. So if you have a meeting and all of a sudden they come in and goals have changed and the placement page is already filled out, violation of the IDEA, violation of Mass state laws, violation of civil rights. Okay? I'm not going to ask if that's ever happened to anyone. I know a couple of people in here it has. The predetermination of a placement is illegal on multiple levels. Okay? It's a team decision. There's no principal, there's no PSS, there's no relevant staff, except in Brookline on page 62. And all those italics are in the manual. Changing subjects because I'm getting upset. Or wait, are we changing it yet?
Yep.
This one I love. This one's great. We're going to be wrapping up in a couple minutes. This one's great. State law. When the participation, okay, well, you know, you get the IEP eventually, and you're told you have 30 days to sign it. Now, the sign can be, I love it, I hate it, I like parts of it, right? Rejection, exception, partial. The law says you need to do that. You got 30 days to do that. There is no penalty in the law, but that's what the law says, and it makes sense. Can't be hanging out there. That comes under the category of parent participation, which is where it's in the IDEA. This is the state law about it. But the state, in its infinite wisdom, and I say that with all seriousness, every morning I wake up, at least until Hannah was 22, thanking the good Lord I'm in Massachusetts. Okay, we're in a phenomenal state, and that's dead serious. When consent to the parent doesn't come in 30 days, what's the school's responsibility? The school shall make and document efforts to contact the parents to get their participation, not to castigate them. Such efforts include letters, written notices, certified mail, electronic mail, telephone calls, TTY, go to their house, go to their work, find them. I know directors who literally get in the car and knock on doors, who go to homeless shelters, okay? And it's all to say to the parent, you can reject it. You can accept it. Let's talk about it. What's your problem? A little nicer than that. I'll also admit, I never returned any of Hannah's or Joe's in 30 days, okay? I was one of those parents, absolutely. It's a mistake. Do it, okay? But anyway, my point is, right? Got it? State law, CMR 28071C. Let's see what our procedure, our codified procedure is very simple. Parent doesn't respond to the proposed placement on IEP in 30 days, send a rejection of no response to the BSEA. The BSEA is Bureau of Special Ed Appeals. It's sort of like special ed court in the state. It's the highest level, and there's a hearing officer, and it's special ed court, so to speak. Okay? First of all, I have no clue what a rejection of no response means. I'm an engineer. I went to school for engineering. I took this sentence in context, and I sent it to a woman I know. She happens to be director of the BSEA. And I said, do you understand what this is? And I got back, she's a very smart lawyer. Well, sort of, maybe, kinda, sort of, kinda, they're referring to this? And that was the answer. So this, we're going to send a rejection of no response, don't really know what that means. Now, when a district finally does send to the BSEA and say, we can't get a response, we don't have a response, the BSEA will send you a letter, and it'll be signed by this woman. It's a form letter. It says, hey, you have any issues, we could do mediation, we can help you. So, you know, what can we do? Okay? So our formal procedure, written for everybody to understand, is not that, it's that. Am I saying is it wrong? I don't know. That's above my pay grade. It's one of the things that irks me about the manual. I want to give a talk on discipline at some point if people would like to hear it. We have a horrible track record on discipline. We have students that are on IEPs, principals put them in the hall with a video game for 3 hours at a desk. We have students with behavior problems which the parents are not made aware of for a couple of months, other than some emails saying, hey, things aren't going so great, but whatever. And all of a sudden, the district tells the parents, we want to send them out of district, and here, sign this PL1. What do we know about placement meetings? They have to happen with an IEP meeting. We have a student who had learning disabilities. Out of the blue, behavior got out of control, absolutely. And instead of doing what the Office of Civil Rights tells us to do, which is have an immediate IEP meeting no matter what the kid's disability is. If the kid has a reading disability, you're having behavioral issues, you get an IEP team meeting, talk about the discipline and behavior. We have a student who last year, instead of doing that, from the highest levels, the word came down, file a 51A and file a CRA. And if you don't know what those are, they involve the court and they involve state custody, what's the word I'm looking for? Child services. Okay? We have real issues with how we handle discipline here. It's clear. I have repeatedly, at least 6 times, given senior management, as senior as they get, documentation from the Office of Civil Rights, the Department of Education, how you handle discipline of students with disabilities. That's why your IEP is so vital. You have tremendous protections with an IEP or a 504. Okay? Discipline, behavior go hand in hand. Okay? A student taken out of class for behavioral issues has to be returned to class immediately as soon as they regain composure and are safe to go back. Principal calling you up a half hour before school ends and say, come get your kid, that is a suspension. These are things we don't handle right. So that stuff I've brought up, I've been putting stuff on the SPED-PAC website. What is my point? My point is in our manual. This is vital as procedure, standard operating procedure. Kid with a disability, behavior out of hand, what do? I wrote to senior staff recently about this manual, just so you know. And I wrote the district, the discipline of students with disability section talks about students after 10 suspensions or if they're committing crimes. We're talking about weapons, okay? After 10 suspensions is a very key time with our kids. Doesn't matter right now. There's nothing in the area under discipline of students with disability about disciplining our students, okay? Unless they have 10 suspensions. It doesn't say immediate IEP team meeting. Positive behavioral supports. Do everything you can to not put them in a more restrictive environment. It doesn't say that. You go through the manual, and if you happen to look in the section on eligibility, and if you're in the section on eligibility and you happen to look under psychological and emotional issues, you'll find a couple of sentences there that hint about making sure the child has proper behavioral supports. So it's in the completely wrong place. It doesn't talk about anything worth talking about.
So does it define what constitutes a suspension to the ETS? Like, do they know, are they taught?
I don't, no, oh no, the definitions are not in the manual.
So they don't know that like a timeout, you know, missing a period or two is counted as a suspension?
I have not seen any of that in the manual, and you're just making me realize that now.
And we don't know what they're actually being trained. So this is all we have. We were told this was the
answer
this
is
was the guide they were using to train. They may have been told a great many more things than what's in here.
Do people
This is all we
want
know.
do people want to talk on discipline behavior another time? Is that of interest to people?
Yeah.
Okay. Massachusetts has some pretty strong stuff about that, and good stuff about that in definitions. The manual, not so much. Okay, those are the big things. And please, look at the big picture of what we just went through. The IEP team, we don't know the definition, the power of the team, the power of the team leader. We do know team leaders often reference things to the administration. I have to check on that. I don't know. So is the power still with the IEP team? The power of the placement team, which is purely everything decided by the placement team, all of a sudden we got principals, special ed directors, and everything else. What happens to the control and the power of what's going to happen to our student? Okay? Is it with the team, the people who know your student the best, where you're an equal partner, where you're sitting there around a table discussing, or does the control and power go elsewhere? I don't know how it works. I'm not claiming to know how it works. This is not clear, and I don't know why the manual is set up the way it is, missing a lot of that. There's a whole mess. I think I have 95 comments in the manual or something. There's a whole mess of things. Some of them are errors of omission. Some of them are dead links, mistakes in references. There's a lot of stuff. To take a look at some quick ones, RTI. RTI has nothing to do with special education. It happens in general education, basically trying to answer very, very simplistically the question, can we help this student with stuff that we do? Little team gets together, let's work with this gen ed student. We say in the manual this sentence, which is poorly written, and I do want to say other parts of the manual get this fact correct. Okay? This says, although some students may eventually be referred for special ed, RTI should not be seen as a pre-referral mechanism, rather a prerequisite. And that bold is in the manual. So this is saying, as far as I can understand, RTI is a prerequisite to a referral for special ed. Other places the manual get it right because that's really wrong. Okay? The law, very clear. You don't delay or deny special ed evaluation for anything. Somebody says, I want that child referred for special ed evaluation, that child is referred to a special ed evaluation, whether or not they're in the middle of RTI. And the other interesting thing about this sentence, when I read it in more context, right? I'm pulling out a sentence here. I could be, I could say, the sentence before could say, this is a lie, don't let us say this. When I read it in context, that paragraph, I get more confused. I'm just saying, this is our manual. It can't be confusing, and it's not a prerequisite. So, I don't get it. We mentioned the PSS, was it, or PPS, something we didn't know?
PSS.
Right. Here we have a sentence. Schools in Brookline have developed child study teams, student intervention teams, for gathering data, implementing interventions prior to special ed referral. Can someone here, dead serious question, tell me what a CST is? Okay, thank you.
I thought it's something that is a group of people within the school, including the principal and some specialists. Parents are not allowed to hear it, and a teacher will present a student.
Okay, so it's a team within the school. Okay.
And parents are not allowed to be part of it.
Right.
Well, let me throw this out. I had no idea what it was. There's no definition in the manual. This manual is for parents and everybody else. So what I did, because I didn't want to just come in here screaming, right, and the definition's not in there. On September 1st, I wrote to senior administration, who handed me the manual. And I said to the Deputy Superintendent for Student Services, can you just tell me how child study teams are made up? who's part of the team? That was September 1st. The question got punted to the superintendent for teaching and learning. And he said, Nicole will give you the answer. And it sat for 2 or 3 days. And I wrote back, I said, can I find out what a CST is, who makes it up? I said, is it teachers, who makes up the CST? Is it specific to that child, general to the school? Finally, after nudging a little bit, I get an email that says, the same as last year, if you have other questions, let me know. I said, okay. Can you tell me who makes up the team, what it's about, is it the same, blah, blah? Nothing. It's been 2 weeks. I cannot get an answer to what this is from either of 2 deputy superintendents. Thank you. This one, my first email to the district, current leadership, was August 10th, 2016, talking about this. IEP deadlines, there's a sheet here for people to take home. It's a reference sheet, 1 page, double-sided, paid big money because it's thicker paper. One side is timeline, one side is references. IEP timeline is vital to your rights. And it's very important to know, you leave that IEP team meeting, and depending on a couple of things, you have to have 2 copies of the IEP in your hand within either 5 calendar days or 2 calendar weeks, period. And as a matter of fact, that is the only thing I know of in special ed law in Massachusetts that's in 2 different places. Okay? So the timeline from the meeting till you have the proposed IEP. Many districts, you walk out with it. Okay? So
I have a question on the IEP and the timelines, and then going back to the team. And maybe it's happened at every IEP meeting I've ever been to. We're supposed to be developing this thing, right, that's in draft form that you walk out with. But it is obvious to me at every IEP meeting that I've ever been to for my kids that everybody on that team but me has had a conversation amongst themselves, has typed something up, have circulated it amongst themselves and talked about it, and it's being presented to me rather than developed with me as part of a team.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
okay.
I don't want to, sorry.
No. I'm going to both punt and answer it, so don't hit me when I punt. That's more of a question for the parents' rights, and we talk about that in the parents' rights and safeguard meeting. The short answer. There cannot be any discussion about your child's IEPs, goals, or services among supposed team members unless you are involved, period. Now, I was engaged as a special ed director once. I work with these people. I know both sides of it, right? You can't go into an IEP meeting with nothing. And there's law on this, and there's advisories. What the right thing and what happens often in many places is, well, eligibility is different. That's a little tougher. Your annuals, your other meetings, everyone should be writing up their own goals, their own summaries, their own notes. The SLP, reading, math, whoever, okay? They can submit those, they can do it on the computer. And out from the computer will pop out a draft IEP, not discussed among the members. Words are very, very important. So you can start the meeting with a draft IEP that has not been discussed, but has input. So they would say, you know, Mary, update, you know, Johnny's goals for SLP, and, you know, Joe, update the math goals, get them to me, let's get them in the computer. So they're not really talking among themselves. and there's a draft IEP that they may give you a week before, they may give you at the meeting. That's considered legal.
Well, what about in the meeting when person A says to person B, oh no, remember you added that to the B grid, and so I moved.
And then you say, the first time you say,
Could you please repeat that so
What-
I can turn on my recorder?
yes, we'll talk about recording. The first time you say is, why wasn't I involved in that team meeting? Okay, they can't do that.
What about when you come for your IEP meeting and you wait, they have to wait in the office while they're in
They're
their
meeting without you.
For the pre-meeting.
Okay, we're gonna hit that, okay? So, there's a concept of a draft IEP. What's even worse, and what this district does all the time, is if they come into a meeting with the PL1, which is the placement page, if there's anything written on that, any box checked, do what I have done in this district, just reach over and say, I'm gonna take that with me. Okay? Violation of everything. Okay, so we have a draft IEP. Everyone understand? A draft IEP, they haven't discussed it. It's something to get the meeting going with. Okay? For an eligibility meeting, it's a little funkier, and sometimes they discuss it, and, you know, to some degree, it's stuff you have to do.
I have a quick question. If we always have the draft that's already, prepared before we
Right.
get there. If I ever asked for, can I look at the draft before the meeting? If they said no, would they be lying if they actually
No,
had
there
it?
is absolutely no law, no regulation. You ready for this? But that would be part of the Brookline Procedural Manual. The procedural manual, procedures, what are the procedures around an IEP? Give the parent a draft IEP at this time. There is some talk about it in here. There's no law about that. Okay, so we have the concept of a draft IEP. The IEP that is given to you to sign is the IEP that is designed in that meeting. You are sitting in that meeting. At the end of that meeting, before you slip into placement and go out and get your coffee, the proposed IEP has been completely developed. Okay? So whatever has been decided at the moment the IEP meeting ends is what has to be on that piece of paper you eventually get. Can't be any surprises. The proposed IEP. Some districts, I've been in, they sit there on the computer, the team leader, and meeting's over, hold on a minute, they hit print and they say, here's the proposed IEP. Beautiful. That works. Okay? That, I need you to know that definition. Proposed IEP. So there's a draft IEP, there's a proposed IEP. The moment you sign the IEP, there's a couple of names. There's an accepted or an active IEP. That's what your child is on. Stay put, other stuff, let's not worry about that. Okay? So there's a draft IEP, becomes a proposed IEP, becomes the active IEP. It's real easy. Those are words used, defined, and everything else.
You're probably going to cover this because I'm always getting ahead of you. If they give you a draft IEP and you're making notes on it, and then they try to take that away from you at the end of the meeting, tell them no.
That's in the manual. This manual does have something good. I've never seen it done here, really. Okay? It talks about giving out the draft IEP, that parents can make notes on theirs. Parents can take that home. It also talks about this a little funky, like I told you, I don't cover nearly everything. The one that the ETF marks up can be given to you as the proposed IEP. You're going to sign something with chicken scratch and crossouts. I don't get that, but it's cool. Okay? Yes, your note's written on it. If it says draft IEP, you have notes on it, it goes in your pocket. And you get a copy of the attendance sheet. And you bring an advocate. So, what does it say in the Standard Operating Procedure Manual? Following a team meeting where a student is found eligible, which is every team meeting, if you're going to really have one, the parents, you got your proposed IEP?
Thank you.
We'll see you later, thank you. No. The parent is given 2 copies of the proposed IEP draft. I am at a loss, okay? If they give you 2 copies of the draft IEP on your way out the door, then the meeting was just cookies and donuts. If they give you 2 copies of the proposed IEP on your way out, then the rest of this doesn't make any sense because you have the proposed IEP. So this is a very, very confusing sentence, and this is a key part of the timeline that I have documented. Linda, how many times? It was a 2-page email with just pure how many times I've said it. Okay? And then it says a summary sheet containing service delivery and goals. There's a definition of an IEP summary in the law. It's actually in a memorandum on the law because Massachusetts got its butt kicked by the feds in 1990 saying you're doing this all wrong. If you leave the IEP meeting, you will either leave empty-handed, which is fine and legal. You will leave with a proposed IEP, cool, or you will leave with a summary that has a filled out service grid, A, B, and C service grid filled out, and a summary of the goals. That's it. Those are 3 choices. So this proposed IEP draft, I don't understand. But then where we say here the district has 10 school days to send a formal IEP, no clue what that is, as well as a placement page for parent signatures. What the law is, if you walk out with nothing, school has 3 to 5 calendar days to get your proposed IEP. How many people have gotten an IEP 3 to 5 days after the meeting? Yeah. Okay. Whoa.
Never.
Get out. No. Okay. If
Just one. All of us were late.
and I read somewhere it's 3 to 5 because there might be a weekend. And it's extremely important. It's 3 to 5 calendar days if you walk out with nothing. If you walk out with a proposed IEP, there's no timeline. You got 30 days to sign it. If you walk out with that summary, this one I like. They have 2 calendar weeks, parentheses, not school day, not 10 school days. So the law, it specifically says this.
So if you walk out with the ones that the ETF writes notes on.
Well, that's probably a proposed, that's difficult.
Okay.
But I would give them 2 weeks for that, but it's 2 calendar weeks, not 10 school days. There is no such thing as a formal IEP that I know. So the point being, this is a very weird thing in our standard operating procedure, which I have fought weekly in this district. The other punchline, and be aware of this, if you turn to the ETF, no matter what if they give you the summary, which gives them 2 calendar weeks, and you say to them, now I'm really jazzed, I want to sign this. I want the proposed in 3 to 5 calendar days. Period. That's it. They must do that. That's the law. Okay? So again, my point, is this wrong? Yeah, this is not only wrong, it doesn't make sense. It's been brought up 1,000 times, and it's your right. And if you don't have that IEP, well, let me rephrase this. Remember, services on an IEP start immediately after you sign it. The longer they delay getting you the IEP, the longer there are no services, or the wrong services. Okay? They can't do that. I even know why it takes so long, and they can solve it, and I've told them how. That's an issue.
Going back to the proposed IEP, how many days did you say that they have to get you the formal IEP if you walk out with the
There's information on the thing here, but if they give you which
the proposed?
Like the chicken scratch.
Yeah, basically.
if they give you what they say, this is the copy for you to sign. That's it. Timeline's over. You got 30 days to sign it.
If you sign it and walk out, then services start the next day.
That's it. Services start the next day.
But if they give you anything else, pretty much say.
Okay? And services also have to start the first day of school.
See you.
Unless otherwise specified on your IEP.
If you sign it there, what about the N1 they send?
If you sign it there, they still have to send you prior written notice and then one that says,
Summary.
these are why we're making changes that we all agreed on.
Well, and they do a summary of the whole meeting that's always inaccurate.
Oh, you fight that, but that's not really the IEP,
Okay,
but you argue that differently. Okay, timelines. You could look at it and say, oh, this is a stupid little thing. No, it's not. And I've yelled about it and yelled about it. It is vital. It's twice in the law. It is your right. And they take weeks and weeks because they have to send it to town hall first. Nobody else does that. And they have to do all this stuff. And it's codified in 2 sentences that don't make sense. Extended school year. You're going to love this one. Okay? I'm going to need everyone to take out your calendars. Don't really do it. Extended school year, they have these forms they need to fill out and the team needs to fill out and everything else. And remember, the parents are always part of the IEP team. The parent is part of the recommendations. This says in the last sentence, the team should be reviewing and updating forms after each vacation. Vacation is when you try to measure regression for determining if ESY services are needed. After every vacation, they should be taking data according in writing to our procedural manual. The IEP team needs to review and update these forms after each vacation. You are a part of the team. You are the most vital part of the team. So I want you to take out your calendars, and everybody, all 1,100 students on IEPs in this district, are going to have a team meeting the week of November 27th, the week of January 1st, the week of February 26th, and the week of April 23rd. You're going to have 4 team meetings to ensure ESY because we are mandated to have team meetings after each vacation. Okay? Is that a mistake? Maybe it's a mistake. Why is it in there? That's the rule. That's the rule for everyone to see. This is an operating procedure manual. What you need to do is make sure that data is taken. And I'll tell you this too. If your student is not having services started yet, okay, that's a week more that they're missing services tacked on to the end of ESY. If your ESY decision was made on, well, 3 weeks at the end of the summer, okay, but services still haven't started, that 3 weeks is now 4 weeks. Manual, I want all 1,100 IEP team meetings each one of those weeks. Okay, wrapping up, because I'm getting overheated. SPED-PAC was assured of multiple topics that were going to be in the manual, that were going to be done in training, that were going to be discussed over the summer in this manual. Recording meetings. It's been a point of contention. It's not a point of contention. Mass law lets you. They may come up with a policy, and we have to be very careful that says, no, you can't record a meeting. I don't know what they're going to do. But there were several very difficult IEP team meetings I was in where parents were told they're not allowed to record, and I got Andrew Bott and Sam Zimmerman to put out a memo saying, no, we're going to follow mass law, and if everyone in the team agrees, then you can record it. If one person doesn't agree, you can't record it, but that gets really problematic. We need a policy. Length of meetings, we need a policy. Some people are only given 1 hour, other people get all the time in the world. Team meeting requests. If you request a team meeting, how long does the district have to acknowledge that or give it to you? The law, and this is in my quiz, doesn't say. Okay? If you have a request a team meeting because you got an outside evaluation, I have an evaluation I want to talk about, we need a team meeting, they have 10 days. If you say I need a team meeting because the teacher's beating my child, they don't have to give it to you. God forbid. That I don't know about happening here. That was just a bizarre example. So when you, okay. So team meeting requests, availability. I just told you what happened at Lincoln. Now I can only have meetings on 9 to 2 on the, they have to make it available for the parent. Communication logs going back and forth. Some team facilitators don't put that in an IEP. Oh no, it doesn't have to be in the IEP, just agree with the teacher. We need a district policy. Discipline I talked about. Electronic delivery of forms. Some ETFs will email you the IEP. That's how you get a proposed IEP in 2 weeks, and just email it to me, don't send it to. We don't have a policy. They all do whatever they want. I'm going to jump down to confidentiality for a second. We've had a lot of issues with confidentiality. Again, parents' rights talk. But you know, some of your evaluations say confidential and some of them don't. Some email says confidential, some of them don't. It's all the same. There aren't different levels of confidential. Okay? Any piece of paper having to do with your child in school is as confidential as an MCAS grade. But if this is confidential, well, we need a definition, we need consistency. This is the most important part of the entire talk, in my humble opinion. IEP etiquette. A lot of parents have said things to me, as a parent said about 20 minutes ago. I walk into the meeting, they're all talking about my kid. I'm sitting out in the office and they're all sitting there waiting, and I walk into a full, that's intimidating. I've been in meetings where it's been Mr. Smith, Miss Jones, Dr. Smith, Mom and Dad, or Fred and Mary. We need a discussion, just IEP etiquette around a team meeting. If you look in the IEP process guide, please look in the IEP process guide. It's under documents on our SPED-PAC site. The first chapter, or a little part, called Working Together. And throughout the document, it has squares, little text boxes that are suggested practices, best practice. It's a great document. Working together is the first category, and in the first suggested things, it says IEP etiquette. If you're going to call them Mr. and Dr., call the parents Mr. and Dr. It's easy. That's in there. I put this on the list, open issues with the deputy superintendent, because many parents have said to me, this is an issue. I don't like working there. Please listen. In writing, yesterday, was told by senior staff, I do not believe IEP meeting etiquette needs to be addressed, as this has only been raised by one person, rather than hearing this as a larger concern.
So go home and email Sam.
So this,
Do whatever you feel is appropriate.
so no, just, this needs to be understood. At the highest levels, the author of this manual, it's 3 sentences to add to an 85-page manual, because I was the only person raising an issue as SPED-PAC co-chairperson, hearing it from a lot of people. The district said to me, you're the only person bitching about, saying anything about it. And no, we're not going to even deal with that kind of an issue. And that happens across the board in this district. Okay? They are tired of hearing me screaming about things. And I'm going to use completely wrong words here. Nobody has my back. Nobody else is joining in their voice. And that's why we have so many issues around here. And there it is in writing. And we will not address this issue because only one person is complaining about it. Okay? So none of you will experience proper etiquette unless you happen to have an ETF who does it. That makes me incensed. Okay? And that's why most of these issues are there. Trust me, I'm wrapping up. This is what I just said. It will not address issues unless multiple families.
Yeah, and that's across multiple issues, not just etiquette. We've heard from districts in general, but just hearing it from us isn't enough. That we need parents to directly complain about things.
The idea of SPED-PAC is we're supposed to be an advisory council, and they're supposed to listen to us, and we're working on that. And we don't want to have an
adversarial relationship any more than anybody else does. We don't want to tell you guys that you have to go and complain to the district about everything, because that feels really uncomfortable as a parent to complain. But when we complain, they say, well, how many parents have that problem?
How
And
do
I'm like, enough that I remember it, and I don't remember much.
Or they'll say,
How
tell
do
them
they
to
want
call
us
us.
to complain?
So,
I've tried to engage Superintendent Scott on some pretty serious issues going on at Heath with security, and I was shut down. I asked his secretary to meet with Heath. So how are you gonna
We're recording, and you're right.
make a suggestion? Put it in writing.
Wait, let me get to that right now. Okay, let me get to that right now. Okay, issues like not getting your IEP on time, your proposed IEP. I said to Sam directly, I could have filed with the state weekly on that. Okay, that's a compliance issue. You file with the state. I swear to you, the answer was, well, you should. No, the answer to that one was, it would have been an interesting year. We must report these issues, escalate them, we all must. To that end, I'm done talking about the manual, I got 3 slides left. So my problems with the manual, and there's a ton more, lots of nitpicky issues, lots of things. The IEP team isn't in control like it should be, and I don't know who knows that, now you do. The placement team's not in control as it should be, okay? Those are my issues. Where is the power that's working on these things? So let's take a look. There's a new website, one of several, special education form. And let me see, because I just tried.
We're going to present this on Friday. Are you going to go through it today too, or
What?
this whole website?
I know. I'm just going to show this one little quickie on it. Well,
It's getting late.
I'll make it
The
live.
babysitters.
Okay, real quick. You want to tell the district something, you don't know who to write to, you want to make sure they get your attention, you want to use the right words, okay? There's this website, it's SPED-Form, and it's on the back of this piece of paper, SPED-FORM. You go to it, you click on any one of these. You want to send, for instance, an email to the district, this comes up. You tell it what school. What happens to say upper devotion? There's all the people. Who do you want it to go to in the school? Who in the district? And at the bottom are pre-written emails for you. Okay? So if you have an issue, you send it to your team facilitator. You can just click off and copy the director of special ed, the deputy superintendent. You can send a copy of it to your advocate, to your spouse, to a lawyer. And if they get enough of these that are properly worded, this will take you, 90 seconds to fill out? And you can get a properly worded complaint out there that's documented. And for parents who have said, I don't know who to write to, I don't know what to write, right there. It's all just available for you. Okay? We'll be talking about it Friday. There are several websites that have been made. This is Brookline specific. It also has a choice. Send a complaint to the state. Same kind of thing. Bang, bang, bang. Fill it out. Send it in. Last thing, Sam asked me to share this with you. Yesterday, Deputy Superintendent got one draft of my marking up the manual. This is from him. In the spirit of collaboration, he wants the attendees here to know that comments and revisions were shared with the district team today, today being today, and we'll be reviewing and making appropriate revisions. Now, they have only seen, I don't understand this, I don't understand this. They haven't heard, when you put this together with this, it removes all the power from the team. It's one of the reasons parents don't complain. Okay, why don't you complain? One of the reasons you don't complain, you tell me all the time, they'll retaliate. Yeah. Under normal circumstances, who will retaliate? The team won't. Come on, they're the teachers, they're the stuff. You're worried the administration will retaliate. The administration cannot retaliate. They're not part of the team. They make no decisions, except if they follow the manual. We have this bizarre catch-22 has been set up. Not intentionally, it's all an accident, we all grew into it, I don't know. That's what the manual shows. That's my presentation. If they make the appropriate revisions, then what? They're going to retrain all the staff. Staff was just trained. Professional development is what, an hour a month or something? A lot of questions, what's going to happen? I may be totally wrong. If I'm totally wrong, that's fine. I might be wrong on all of this.
But you informed them about problems with this manual.
I gave them a manual with red marks.
A long time ago, though.
All throughout the year. I've been doing it for 13 months.
Right, so this was a revised, supposedly based on all the issues.
We didn't go through and do a fully like line by line, because frankly, that's what we pay our administrators to do, and Craig and I are volunteers. We buy food for events.
Here, I'll show you something. Here's the manual.
He makes photocopies on his own.
Did they have a lawyer review it?
Yes, according to Sam, listen carefully. Here's the manual, but oops, it's not showing. According to Mr. Zimmerman, the town lawyer looked at it once, and the special ed lawyer looked at it 3 times. That's what I was told. That's all I'm saying.
And he's now reviewing it with outside counsel.
Again, the same one that reviewed it 3 times.
Yes.
That is